moderator, Deadline Awards columnist, and chief film critic, Pete Hammond.
All right. How many just saw the Kominsky Method for the first time, just now? Wow, okay. Well, did you like it? It's great, huh? Really great. I'm going to introduce, as you can see, we have a really great panel coming out here. First off, he is an executive producer, a writer on the show, and co-showrunner. Please welcome Al Higgins. She is definitely an ethereal presence here. She plays Eileen Newlander. Please welcome Susan Sullivan. And as Sandy's daughter, Mindy, please welcome Sarah Baker. And you all know her as the very wild Phoebe in the show. Please welcome Lisa Edelstein. Definitely a legend, an Oscar winner. Please welcome as Norman, Alan Arkin. And yet another legend is Sandy Kominsky, and another two-time Oscar winner. Please welcome Michael Douglas. And the creator, writer, director, executive producer, co-showrunner. He does everything on this show and so many others. Please welcome Chuck Lorre. Have a seat, grab the mic, and congratulations, guys, on this show, which won the Golden Globe for Best Television Series, Comedy or Musical, and for Michael Douglas. Way to start out this award season and continue on with it. It's a different show for you, Chuck. This is a single camera show. It's you're not working in front of an audience. You're used to doing, of course, Big Bang Theory, one of his just ended, fantastic. Those shows, 2.5 minutes, it's different for you. Why did you want to go this format and do this particular story now?
I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to do things differently. It's an entirely different approach to storytelling, and the comedy is very different. The tone of it, the pacing. In front of an audience, the audience is part of the show. So the writing, the performance, all has to work with the audience as they change everything. Right. And the cameras are there just to photograph the story. The camera is much more obvious. It's new to me. It's old news to people in the film business. The camera is a big deal in single camera, and it changes the way the story is told.
And it's kind of personal, this one too. I think that it's you're going to the bone here because it's on a dime. It can turn from comedy to drama and back again, which is a very tricky thing to pull off totally, and you certainly do it continually here. I can't wait for season 2, which is coming on in the fall. And neither can they. But it's exploring aging, it's exploring generation gaps in its own way. It's a lot of different themes. What to you is the core theme of the show?
First and foremost, it was about getting older and all that entails, the health issues, mortality, losing loved ones, feeling estranged in this culture, feeling as if I've always felt that culture is a big ship and it's moving away from the shore, and I'm waving. Goodbye, good luck, enjoy Snapchat and whatever, but I'll stay here and listen to the radio. So
Transistor rate.
Yeah. My Trinitron, put that up there. So there are all those issues, and Netflix seemed like a wonderful, and they have been a wonderful environment to tell those stories without one worrying about demographics, without chasing some elusive demographic.
And you can do this as, it's technically a half-hour show, but it can be 40 minutes, it can be 20 minutes.
No one's looking at the watch. It's just whatever. Tell the best story. It doesn't matter if it's 34 minutes or 26 minutes. Just tell the best story, which it makes a lot of sense. But in network television, it's 21 minutes, whatever, and change, and it has to be. So you're cutting and you're adjusting for commercials, not necessarily in the best interest of the story.
Look at the cast. This is just part of the cast. Look at this cast. Amazing ensemble, and I was very surprised. I don't know why. Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas had never worked before together.
Never met before.
You never even met, no. The closest you came was you were both in different versions of the In-Laws. Yeah, Michael, this is a return to television in the way, not just as like you were so great as Liberace and everything, but this is weekly, I guess, or streaming. But this is the first time since really Streets of San Francisco when you started your career. And can you talk about why this one lured you back? Is it?
Yes, full circle. Nice suit.
Nice shirt. This was an accident.
We check in with each other.
Adorable.
Well, the timing was just great. I mean, I had my fair share in the films of doing indie type movies that you really cared and loved, which you got paid nothing for, had no budget. You were the marketing budget for the movie, going on talk shows and all of that. And beyond that, you had sort of tentpole pictures, the CGIs, which I've been able to encompass with Ant-Man in the Marvel world. But when Chuck presented this to me, number one, it was great writing. I mean, really good writing. It was an issue that was close to all of us. I said, "Who doesn't like a man who finds comedy with getting older?" I mean, this is gold.
Not me.
And then this whole streaming venue where it's true. Whereas in broadcasting, you really have to cater to your advertisers. That's why the so-called 48 whatever is the demographics. Whereas in streaming, you're catering to your membership. And then you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, there's a lot of older people out there. And there's a lot of audience. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been a joy to work with Alan and our other esteemed cast members. And the writing from Chuck and with Al has been spectacular. So it's been a really good ride.
I love so many of the teams, but I love the fact that your class is younger students and you have that generation gap going on there. There's that aspect of it too that's fun to watch.
It is. For Alistair Cocker's show, it's a wonderful way to bring in young people. So there is a whole audience of the younger ones, and I think we have a lot of fun playing with some of the mismatches between the generations.
It's astounding. I introduced you as both Oscar winners. What really surprised me is you just recently, and I know your father was even there for it, not long ago, you got a star, finally, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I had no idea.
I did. I was very grateful for that. And Alan here got a star yesterday.
Which equally astonished me that we haven't been walking over you for all these years.
You have been walking over me all this time.
How was that? I just want to ask, how was that yesterday?
It was delightful. I mean, the whole crew of the show was there. One of the really touching things to me was the fact that a lot of the crew came up and said they'd never been to one before. They'd never been invited before. So that was very moving for me. And I got a letter from two of my sons couldn't be there. One is directing in Canada, and the other one's in a play in New York. And so they wrote letters that my third son Matthew read, and I was enormously moved by that.
It's amazing. Are you going to go out and visit your star?
They still talk to me. What?
You're going to go out and visit your star?
I started dancing. No, I didn't hear you.
Yeah. You know, you go out every now and then and visit your stars.
I know. I have a guard there 24 hours a day.
Really?
Get the hell away from there. Don't do that thing there.
It's so great watching you and Michael together on this. You seem like you must have worked together for 50 years, in my opinion. You have instant chemistry on this show.
Well, I had no idea what he was going to be like to work with. But I put this in print so you can quote. It's legitimate.
Let me record this.
No, it's down. It's down in many places. He's as easy to work with as anybody I've ever worked with. And it felt that way from the day one. And I don't know why. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you can admire somebody, and then it can be a nightmare. But he's as easy to work with as anybody I've ever worked with.
I think one of our first scenes was in the restaurant. It was the first episode. It was like the first scene that we shot, and it was. You knew immediately after that. We kind of looked at each other and said, "Oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be good." And that's what you hope for. And I'm going to say this about the entire cast. It's just not a weak link. And Chuck is now have cast this whole show, so well that allows us, great opportunities.
Alan, in terms of the themes of this show, I mean, you're dealing with some very serious things in this show. Obviously, your wife with cancer and other issues here. And I understand, although I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I understand season 2 will even delve more into different areas that you don't normally see in the comedy genre. Can you talk about that and playing real life here, as it were?
It's on you.
Is it on me?
Both, yeah.
Both. Well, I mean, certainly the first season of the show, Alan deals with the loss of his wife, played beautifully by Susan, and even in the afterlife, she does a great. That great job where you die on camera and then you keep coming back, which is fantastic. And I think that most of our first season deals with the issues of rearranging your life after you've lost a loved one, dealing with this dysfunctional daughter, and Lisa. I'm sorry, Lisa. That. And our second season, Chuck decided I think it was time to beat me over the head. So I've got my fair share of issues in the second season.
Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to do the show was in one of my first meetings with Chuck said he didn't want to do a show about old people where all they do is talk about the diseases. So I said, that's for me. And lo and behold, we never ever talk about any problem. As promised. It's too late.
What is Chuck Lorre like to work with in this? Because he's gone back to his roots. Yeah, let's talk about Chuck Lorre.
Be honest.
Don't be honest.
What?
After you.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. You never see him. He's behind a black curtain all the time. Every once in a while he sends somebody out and he gives directions and that's it. Every once in a while he comes out and says he likes something. Yeah, that's a nice time. Am I lying? Am I lying?
I imagined, I imagined with all the stuff that he had going on in Chuck Lorre Productions, he promised us to be, I'll be there every day, I'll be there all the time. We went, yeah, right. And it turned out he was. He was there. So on one side, I'm so grateful. On the other side, this guy wants to be word perfect. And if you don't have word right, your best notes will come out for you. But he's right. Most of the time, he's always right, which is what really pisses me off.
You don't change a word. I mean, and Alan famously came from Second City and, the world of improvisation earlier in your career. So is there ever the temptation, or you look at these scripts and they're gold anyway?
Never. I wouldn't dream of changing it. No, I mean, I guess there's a line or two an episode where I have an issue, and Chuck and Al have been wonderful about addressing. And I don't think there's ever been a time when they disagreed with me, and it's only been literally a line or two per episode.
Let's talk about your daughters here. Lisa, who I've had the pleasure recently of doing an interview as a scene stealer, definitely steals scenes here. She's certifiable in some ways.
Yeah.
BB,
well
but
done.
a lot of fun to watch, but always making trouble for Dad here.
Yeah.
Talk about playing her here in this show.
I've never gotten to express that part of myself as much as I have on this show. It was a blast. It's been a blast. And working with Alan is, of course, working with this whole cast has just been amazing. And yes, Chuck is word for word stickler, but it's funny because when somebody makes you be word for word, usually the reason why you're off a word is because you're off an idea. And so you have to sort of like find your way into what that idea is and why that word is there. And it's an interesting process. Sometimes you're just a degree off and you find your way back with a different verb.
She's got an interesting background, addict, all kinds of things going on that you don't normally see in comedy. Well, you do in Chuck Lorre shows, though, because I'm thinking of Mom and different things that deal with real life there and real families and everything that goes on. And so that aspect of her, building on it, doing the comedy, but keeping it,
Trying
real.
to keep it grounded, because she's pretty outrageous, especially in season 1. But and also she's a liar. She lies about everything, but she means it when she's lying, even though she knows she's lying. So it's a complicated twist. It was really fun. I loved doing it. I loved the whole arc.
She lies all the. I don't know anybody like that.
Sarah.
Okay. Now to our other daughter here, Sarah. How are you? Is your mic working? Here, we'll get you one right there.
Thanks.
You, on the other hand, are very grounded, and you're always looking out for Sandy here in a lot of ways too. And I think it's
he needs it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's that, at least with my dad, I feel like I have that thing where you're like, oh, Dad, come on. I once went up to somebody in a museum and pushed them out of a way of a painting, and it was a stranger, but I thought it was my dad. But then it sounded even weirder that I just pushed somebody, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my dad. They were like, why are you pushing your dad? But I don't know, I think sometimes if you're a strong woman, you kind of want to take the reins with your dad, and they don't like that, for the most part.
So you walk in, you sit at a table reading for the very first episode. You're sitting across the table from Alan Arkin and Michael Douglas in a Chuck Lorre show. What's going through your mind?
Panic? I don't know. I mean, it's a lot. It's funny, I've said this before, but both Michael and Alan have such iconic voices, speaking voices, that I was like cool and collected, and and as a character actor, you're thrust in that position where you're like, oh, I'm in this scene with them, okay? I'm not watching them on the movie screen or on TV, where I'm in this, I have to participate in this. But when we sat down for the first table read, just hearing both of their voices, all I could think of was like, greed is good. I was like, I'm here, this is actually, wow, this is really happening. It's very surreal.
That would be surreal.
Yeah. And I had to stick up for Chuck, because I will say about Chuck, not that anybody's bagging on Chuck, but you know what I mean. He laughs his head off at what you're doing. You never have to wonder. And some people, weirdly, in this business, hold in their laughter. It's like they don't want to give it to you or something. Or they there's like a moment where they're so busy thinking about what's wrong, what needs to be corrected, but Chuck delights in what we do and laughs his head up at us, and it's very nice, and I appreciate it.
You laugh because of, that's an applaud. Chuck laughing. But that is sort of unusual with a lot of comedy writers. They go, that's funny, or they don't express it that way. I know James L. Brooks used to. If you watch old episodes of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and you hear that kind of cackle in the background of every episode, that's him laughing.
You can hear Jimmy Burrows as well.
Jimmy Burrows.
Yeah, I think laughter, it makes you vulnerable, and sometimes there's some don't want to be vulnerable. You know, if you laugh out loud, you've exposed yourself, and that's, you know, fuck it, I don't care. I love to laugh. It's the greatest job in the world, because our job is to chase laughter. And why wouldn't you want to throw yourself into that?
So speaking of laughter, here we are coming to the character who dies in the show. Susan Sullivan, the great actress, Susan Sullivan. So many wonderful performances in your career. How did this role how was this presented to you? I'm curious.
This is totally a gift from Chuck Lorre. I had done Dharma and Greg with Chuck. And just, this will tell you something about Chuck, which certainly told me something. I was doing a scene, and I was seeing Chuck standing, watching the scene of another scene. I wasn't in the scene, I was just watching it. He said all the lines. He mouthed all the lines. Do you know that you do that?
No.
Oh, I know. I went, Susan, say the words as written. Repeat, say, because I like to sort of loosen it up. Hey, I got an idea. No, I don't. I don't have an idea, Chuck. I got it. Anyway, this is a gift from Chuck. And I just want to talk a little bit, for a second, about that scene. Basically, it tells you everything. That scene, with the first scene where she meets them and sets up the plot line of, please take care of my guy, because you're the guy to do it. You're his best friend. That scene is so brilliantly written, Chuck, and I don't want to flatter you because it's tedious. That scene, and you said to me after we shot the scene, you said you spent 2 years writing it. Is that the truth?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That scene,
Writing it over and over and over and over and over again.
but it set up the character, this character, who reappears. You have to have a sense of who she is. She sets up the relationship between these two men. It sets up the dynamic of where this show is going to go. It talks about grieving. It talks about living. It is a very complex, elegant scene, and I thank you for it.
Amazing. Speaking of writing on the show, Al Higgins, right down there, is another master of the medium. Written several episodes, and of course is a co-showrunner. You've worked with Chuck before, Mike and Molly, we know, and so you have that relationship going in here. So tell us about this collaboration here.
If you're gonna ride coattails, that's the coattail to ride, Chuck Lorre. And I feel I'm in service of Chuck and just trying to, this is his show, and this is his vision. And I help him a little bit, 18% maybe for his 80%, and 2% to a couple other guys. But he's doing things with this show that I marvel at. I'm like, he's taken it to another level. Because, and what I mean by that is the scenes are so simple and they're sparse, but they do so much. And that's why the word, because he knows that, oh, you know what, this is saying so much with just the way this phrasing is. It's saying a lot without having to come out and say it. And so I think his writing in this particular Kominsky method is so sparse and so clean and so truthful that I think that's why it speaks so much to him, and just seeing the actors do it the way he sees it is important.
Yeah, it's interesting, and what Susan just said too, really I did not know, and I've talked to you a couple of times recently about this, but you spent a long time putting this together. 2 years, on and off on a scene she's talking about in different things. What was the creative process for you in bringing the Kominsky method to life?
I wanted to go back to where I began, which was working alone, sitting in a room by myself. And when you're working on a sitcom like The Big Bang Theory or 2.5 Men or any of the other shows that we've been doing, you work with a group of writers, and it's great, it's wonderful, it's fun, it's collaborative. You're never alone. And so being alone was frightening, to go back and sit in a room by myself. There was nobody. Wow. It's just, you know, it's just, I think this is the right way to go, so we're going there. And there's no consensus, there's no conversation, there's no argument. It's just faith, just having faith in that, which is the way most writers write. But in television, it becomes an ensemble effort, because you have to. If you're doing Big Bang is 24 episodes in 9 months. It will kill you if you try to be the guy. And I watched it kill people. I've seen it destroy people, because the workload's ridiculous.
Could you have put this on a broadcast network like CBS, where you do it? This was never a consideration with you.
No, well, first of all, that demographic issue.
They're old that watch CBS.
but the advertising, I know. Oddly enough, the median age for Big Bang Theory is over 50. Yeah, I mean, but the advertisers they are the dominant factor, and they want younger viewers.
It's interesting. So Netflix comes along, a whole new way of doing television, certainly, streaming. You can watch it all at once. This is the new world, and the time was right, I guess, for you to move into this area.
Very fortunate. Yeah, this doesn't happen. This script would have been a doorstop had we not gone to Netflix. And what I was afraid of the binging idea at first. I was used to a show comes out every week on television, but what happens when you have what I didn't know, but what we discovered in the writing of this was when they're all there available for you, it's essentially a book. They're chapters in a book, and you read them at your leisure. You can continue with chapter 2 or 3, and or put the book down and pick it up later. And you know absolutely that if someone is watching the 5th episode, they've seen the first 4. So the stories can expand over the entire run of the episodes. You're not, in episodic television, you have no idea if the people watching the show saw it last week. None. So this way, the stories are so much more fluid, and they can keep going. You can refer to something that happened 3 episodes ago, and the audience might have just seen that. They may have watched it an hour and a half ago.
One of the things I thought was amazing when we finished, like maybe our 2nd episode, and I said, "So what's happening? What's going to happen next episode, Chuck?" He said, "I don't know." "You don't know?" I said, "No, I don't know." So you had that kind of ability to, just as you said, write each chapter and not have to necessarily have the entire thing mapped out before the whole season began.
Another fun thing about the show, too, is we see guest stars popping up and in and out, and, you tune in and there's Anne Margaret, or, there's Danny DeVito as your urologist, Michael.
Typecasting.
What were those rehearsals like?
Well, Lubriderm.
And Netflix does not want me to reveal all the guest stars you have lined up, but 3 of them have been announced already, so it says don't reveal anyone beyond these, because I bet you don't all know. Now, Jane Seymour's in it, and Paul Reiser, but I'm so excited, Kathleen Turner, your co-star with Danny in Romancing the Stone and War of the Roses and Jewel of the Nile. We have a reunion on film here.
It's great. Yeah, it was wonderful. I'm looking forward possibly to some more, but who knows?
Oh, that would be great. You were one of the great screen teams. You were sort of a throwback to the golden age of movies, where we saw, 2 people working together so well, and you just were smart enough to keep doing it too.
Well, it's one of the nice things about doing a series too. Movies might take a longer time, but you say goodbye at the end of a film. And after working with Danny and Kathleen, I see the joy and the value out of working with each other. So doing a series like this, when you know your characters, you know you're going to see each other next week, there's a comfort factor which allows you to overlap or just know the rhythm of each other, and makes it just a really joy to come to work.
You know, congratulations on your Golden Globe here. It was such perfect symmetry because you were named Most Promising Actor literally 50 years ago when you started. And you won the Golden Globe 50 years ago for that, and you won it again here 50 years later. So what have you learned in that time?
I think I've learned that it's all about the material. And I was fortunate enough to have a mentor when I first started named Carl Malden, who really had a tremendous work ethic. And when we ever had a break between scenes, he'd be working on the next week's script. And as a result, the writers hated us because the scripts had to be about 6 or 7 pages longer because we picked up our cues. You know, we had to carry all the stuff, but it was a wonderful sense, and it gave me the basis of my work ethic for carried me through, and to be able to make full circle to come back to television with the kind of quality players that I'm fortunate enough to be involved with is I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Was there any acting teacher you had that you sort of like pulling from when you're playing Sandy?
A little bit. I mean, I had an acting teacher named Wynn Hanman in New York, which I actually. Oh, there we go. There's a couple of us left. Wynn was we just did a documentary for Wynn at the Tribeca Film Festival about his illustrious career and the number of different actors that worked with him, from Al Pacino to Bobby De Niro and a number of others. And he was a kinder and gentler version of another guy named Sandy Meisner, who was also very popular at that particular time. But this was from the first episode when Chuck gave me this great introductory speech in the classroom. I was amazed at Chuck's homework that he did, and obviously the real joy that he has with actors. And I must say, you don't find that with a lot of necessarily writers and or directors, but he seems to really love actors, what they can do.
Well, Chuck, you were a performer yourself, actually. You started out in music.
I was a musician.
He was a musician, you know. I mean, you stumbled into this one way or another into this.
Really stumbled.
But you had that performer kind of thinking, I think.
I think the music background impacts on the way I hear the words. You know, there's syncopation, there's fortissimo and pianissimo, and there's rests, and comedy is full of space, and you have to play the spaces, just like you would if you're playing a melody. So I think I'm a failed musician, but it helped. But it helped me as a writer.
You had a hit record.
Well,
wrote. Tell them the name of it.
The French Kissing, the Debbie Harry song.
Yeah.
Actually, my big claim to fame is I co-wrote the theme song for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's actually what my children are most proud of.
I'll bet residuals come rolling in with that. We can't get rid of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Thank you, God.
Actually, when I think of classic movies, I don't think of that, but I think of The Russians Are Coming. I think of The Heart Is a Lonely Hunter. I think of Eternal Sunshine. On and on and on, you know, with Alan Arkin's career on film. And so I'm just curious, though, as you come to this point in playing this character, what you draw from in playing Norman.
I don't have to draw from a lot. I mean, I'm older than the character I'm playing, so the aches and pains are my own real ones. And the diseases, you get a lot of friends when you reach this age, because how are you? No matter who you say hello to at this age, you get an hour and a half of what the diseases are. So that we have, that's what we have a lot in common. Besides the suits, yeah. Miraculously. I think my character was drawn from Chuck's agent, but I mean, I've had agents all my life. I worked with, I did a movie with, oh God, what the hell's his name? Big blonde, he talks like this, Jason, right? What's his name?
Senior moment. This is
Character acting. You're such a method actor.
He was a star. He was a big star.
When was
Christ, Alan, my God. What's his name? That one. But he was playing an actor in this movie. I worked with him. In his trailer, he had 3x5 cards all over his cars on what it was like. He interviewed actors for a month to find out what it was like to be an actor. He was an actor. I mean, I'd been around agents for 50 years, so I felt like I knew what an agent was like. Plus, I'm not doing very much agenting.
Yeah.
In the script, and I knew what it was like to be 75 because I was 75 a long time ago. So I frankly didn't do a lot of research. A long story short.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like we have method in the title of the show here, but it didn't sound like you're doing method acting here.
I didn't find the need to do it. People may disagree with me and think I need to go back and research old people, but so far nobody's complained.
No. The reason I ask is you seem like so many people I've known and I see in this business. I mean, it's just so natural. It's like fitting into the perfect shoe here. And to watch you two together, like I said before, it's just instant on screen. And I think that's why people binge this show the way my wife watched all 8 in a row. I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm watching the show, you know, and I can't stop. So.
Well, one of the things I guess get with Mike, I always worry when you first meet, is it okay to touch them? Or are they going to be okay? I like to manhandle people. I like in life. I just like to touch people. I like to man. And he's great about that. He was great from the beginning, and the more I do it, the more irate he gets, which is an enormous amount of fun for me, making Michael crazy.
Well, you know, the show is an enormous amount of fun, and it's full of truth and full of life. And fortunately, it's coming back thanks to that guy standing over there. And we can't wait until the fall to see the next one. But meanwhile, we're going to have a reception out there in Netflix land. And so be sure to go to that and thank this panel. And thank you all for coming out here.